for science this week, we're going to be learning about life cycles. This is in your Stemscopedia workbook, and it is on page 89 to 92. My pages, again, are going to be a little bit different than yours because my pages are from the Stemscope's website, and your pages are from your workbook, and they might be a little bit different, but the information is still the same. All right, let's go ahead and begin. So it's a tiny fish called the pygmy goby, lives in coral reefs. It begins its life as an egg. So the egg is going to be the first step in the life cycle. Then the goby hatches and floats through the ocean. So it hatches and floats through the ocean, and the hatchling is the second step. After about 3 weeks, it becomes an adult, and the adult is the third step. Then it lays eggs and dies. And then the life cycle of the pygmy goby begins all over again. It lives only about 2 months. The tortoise, on the other hand, and this is a photo of a tortoise, lives much longer. Tortoises, they hatch from eggs, so that is the first step on their life cycle. Then they slowly grow into adults, and that is their final stage. So when they're slowly growing, that is their second stage, and the adults is the third stage. Some tortoises can live more than 100 years. Some animals, such as the pygmy goby, have very short life cycles. Others, like the tortoise, have very long life cycles. Plants have life cycles too. They usually begin as seeds, and they grow into adult plants. But what exactly is a life cycle? Do they all have the same life cycle? So let's go ahead and begin with what happens in a life cycle of a cricket and a beetle. So a life cycle is the process of being born, growing into an adult, and dying. Life cycles are different of different organisms have different stages. For example, with a baby fox, when it's born, it looks just like its parents, only smaller. It has 4 legs, big ears, red fur. Most baby mammals look like their parents, but most insects do not start their lives looking like their parents. Let's look at the definition of mammal. It is an animal that has hair or fur and is warm-blooded, and it feeds milk to its young. Another example of a mammal are humans, just like you and me. They start out looking very different from adults. Crickets and beetles are 2 examples of that kind of insect where they do not look like their parents. So the cricket life cycle. It starts off as an egg, and that is the first life cycle, the first part of the life cycle. On the bottom of your page, you have your life cycle, but mine is on the next page. So let me move mine up there. All right, so here is the first stage of the cricket. Then it hatches into a nymph, which that is the second stage, and it says that it takes about 2 weeks. The nymph is a smaller version of the adult. As you can see, it looks just like the grown-up cricket, but it does not have wings. You still have to tell that you are still able to tell that the cricket that it is a cricket just by looking at it. While in the nymphal stage, it'll shed its exoskeleton 8 to 10 times. A cricket's wings will begin to grow after about a month. As the cricket grows, the size of the wings also grow. And stage 3 of the life cycle is the adult. Okay? All right, so let's go on to the beetle. So the beetle life cycle. The life cycle is different from the cricket. It has 4 parts. So notice I'm going blank. The cricket, sorry, the cricket has 3, and the beetle has 4. The beetle starts off as an egg, and here's the first part of the life cycle. It hatches into tiny larva, and that larva is called mealworm. So the larva is the second stage. The larva looks like a worm, and it's called a mealworm. The mealworm eats much as it can so that it can grow just like the very hungry caterpillar. Then it starts the pupa, which is the third stage. It wraps itself in a protective case. Soon the adult beetle comes out. So the final stage is the beetle, and that is stage 4 of its life cycle. It looks very different from the mealworm. See how the beetle and the mealworm, they look completely different. And it says that the adult beetle may live for several weeks or months, then it will lay eggs, and then it will die. And the life cycle, of course, has to go from birth to death. That is a life cycle, even for humans. So here is the lookout. Most insects have a life cycle with 4 parts, just like the beetle. But some of them have 3 parts, just like the grasshopper. And it talks about how the grasshopper has 3 parts, and it's going to explain the parts of the grasshopper again. Alright? How are the life cycles of a cricket and the beetle similar, and how are they different? So they are similar so we're going to put similar. And we're talking about a cricket and a beetle because they both start with eggs and end as adults. They both have that. They're both similar in that. And they're different. What is different between them? The stages in between. Okay? Because the cricket has the nymph and the beetle has larva and pupa. Alright, so we're going to move on. The next is what do you think? Okay, what do you think? And it says everyday life. What are the parts of the human life cycle? When you were born, you were very tiny. Most newborn babies only weigh about 8 or 9 pounds. A full-grown adult weighs about 170. That's a pretty big difference. Right here is when you're going to go to page 91. So let's go ahead and turn to page 91. And it says humans go through the same general stages of a life cycle. Life begins with the birth of a baby. That is the first stage, and they cannot do much on their own, but they grow quickly. Soon they become children. That is the second. So here I'm going to write some notes. We're going to do, starts with baby, then it goes to child, and they can walk, talk, play sports, and learn more complicated things. When children turn 13, they become teenagers. That is the third stage. And their body changes from a child to an adult. It takes several years for teenagers to develop into adults. And after that, they turn into adults. Adults may start families and have children of their own. When they get old, their bodies will weaken, like walking and exercising are more difficult. Older adults continue aging until they die. And like I said, every life cycle ends with death of the plants or insects, animals. So what happens in the life cycle of a radish plant and a lima bean? Well, let's go ahead and look at the radish. Radish are a delicious plant that humans can eat. So the seed part, that is the first stage of the radish, and we're going to go ahead and label it here, is very short. Once a radish seed is planted, it grows into a seedling. So it grows into a seedling. That's my second stage. In about 3 to 4 days. A seedling or a sprout is a younger plant that grows out of the seed and much smaller than the adult plant but looks pretty similar. Seedling grows for several weeks before becoming the adult plant. And that takes several weeks. And that is the final stage. And then, of course, the adult radish plant grows flowers. The flowers turn into seeds. The seeds fall on the ground, and then it grows into new plants because it is a life cycle. All right, you are still on page 91. So this is still on page 91. So let's look at lima beans. So have you ever eaten lima beans? It says that they also start as a seed. And you will see that here's my first stage again. So the seed is inside the bean. When the lima bean is watered, the bean swells up, sides of the bean break, and the seed spills out. So once planted, the seedling, which is the second stage, grows out of the seed after about 7 days. Lima bean plant begins to grow into an adult, and that is the third stage in a few months. The adult plant grows beans. When the seeds inside the bean fall to the ground, new lima bean plants might start to grow again. Like I said, every time that, and you will see the lima bean is in there, but every time that you have a living thing, it goes through the life cycle, and the last phase of the life cycle, that last stage, is death. Whether it's a plant, it dies, it gets the flower and it dies, but then new flowers will come out. New seeds and seedlings will sprout. All right, so look at the try it now. And on the try it now, if you want to try to grow a bean plant and do your steps, so you can experiment with the life cycle of a bean plant. You can do that, and if you want to, you can send pictures to your teacher. All right, so here we're looking at this chart, and each list has one word that does not belong. We're going to circle the word that does not belong, and then to the right column, we're going to explain why it does not belong. We have a chrysalis, adult beetle, and a cricket. The chrysalis does not belong because the adult beetle is an adult and the cricket is an adult. And you will write that the other two are adult stages. Sprout, seed, and larva. Well, you know that these two are plants. And a larva does not belong because it is an insect. And then the mealworm, the pupa, and chrysalis. And I think yours says caterpillar, but it's a chrysalis. These two are the same thing. And this one does not belong. All right, so you will fill out these with the two explanations, and that is it. That is your lesson for life cycle.